When you're hiring for three things. You're hiring for strategy, like what do I do, what's working, what are other people doing that's working. You're hiring for optimization. I can read the data and I can see what's happening and I can understand what I need to do to adjust to make this strategy better or to pivot as needed. And the third thing you're hiring for is implementation. And I think you can actually bundle and unbundle those three things. So I think the challenge that people have when they're hiring, especially when they're not at your size, when they're sort of more in that mid-market scale up size, is that they try and hire not six-figure people and they expect them to know the strategy.
Welcome back to another episode of Chew on This. Today we have a really special guest all the way from Australia.
Correct.
Land down under. Somebody that I think I relate to quite a bit. In fact, I don't know for those of you who don't know this, but I actually graduated with a finance degree, never used it, and then went straight into marketing. So similar story on this guy's end. But I want to introduce Jay, CEO, co-founder of Ecommerce Equation. Tons of background on media buying, the landscape of e-commerce. Started multiple agencies, brands, this and that. So excited to kind of get into the whole landscape of agency versus in-house, media buying, all the great stuff that a lot of our viewers are really into right now. And we'll talk tips and tricks around Q4. So Jay, thank you for being here.
Ash, thanks for having me, man.
Of course. For those who don't know you, would love a little bit background, kind of where you've started, where you've come from, and where you're going.
Yeah, man, for sure. So yeah, as you mentioned, I started in finance. I actually used my degree for a little bit, but graduated in 2008 with a finance degree, which is pretty terrible career choice with the global financial crisis. So I kind of pushed through a little bit to 2012, but I was in London doing trading and it was sort of the double dip recession. So it was just a grim time. So I pulled the pin and went and joined a friend who was just crushing it at SEO back in Australia. And we kind of joined forces and started an agency. And just super randomly, like our first client was a big shoe retailer. They're called Hype DC. And as a result, we just attracted a lot of other e-commerce brands. And so through 2012, 2017, just started working with a ton of Australian brands and kind of cut my teeth in e-commerce through that agency. Sold it in 2017 and then went on to do 4 of my own brands. Started sort of helping some friends and some people that knew me from the agency with their growth and marketing based on sort of some of the success they saw in those brands. And that kind of led me to what I do today, which is Ecommerce Equation, which is sort of more of a growth and education business. We help 3,000 brands, mostly in Australia and New Zealand at the moment, but expanding over here into the US.
That's amazing. So from agency to 4 brands to now what sounds like an education kind of platform.
Yeah.
I'm very curious, if I were to sign up for Ecommerce Equation, what am I getting out of it?
Yeah, so we're not an agency, right? We're essentially what we are doing is we're empowering brands to take growth and marketing in-house. And the way that we do that is by leveraging, curriculum and education, but really at its core, we're a coaching and consulting business. So we have over 3,000 hours of expert coaching that we pour into our community to give them, hands-on one-on-one and group support, which really helps people have a bit of a backstop and have the confidence to actually go through the process of building those in-house capabilities, knowing there's experts there that can support them and really give them battle-tested frameworks and strategies and tactics that go, well beyond just a channel, but actually almost going to the entire operational system of how you should be running your e-commerce business. So obviously it's on the demand generation side with a lot of different channels, but it's also, understanding, how to demand plan and merchandise, what happens after the click and, the entire kind of ecosystem of what it takes as you know through your journey. Yeah.
And are you still running the brands on the side as well?
I have one brand. So I started 4 brands. The first was in 2016, 2017. It was AB to Jay-Z. So I took a marketing co-founder position selling like this kids book and that went ballistic. So we kind of got that to almost 8 figures in the first year. Wow. Then I did another kids book business, which I sort of sold out of. And the third business, Dad Cooler, I still have. It's like a gifting product, sort of mid 7 figures. And Yabby was my last startup in 2021, and that's an 8-figure business now. But I merged that. It was sort of like a acquisition. I rolled into the new group, so I'm not really hands-on. I've got a gifting business, but I only really operate that at gifting season, Father's Day, and Christmas. And I still, am involved in Yabby, but my primary focus is Ecommerce Equation, and it's it's been on a massive growth journey. So it takes a lot of my attention.
No, that's awesome.
Yeah.
So going from agency where you were pretty much doing the work and hands-on and different brands and different accounts, to running your own brands and obviously being hands-on there.
Yeah.
And then going into coaching.
Yeah.
Out of all three, where you feel like you're having the most fun and excited about?
I'm absolutely the most excited about helping other founders on their journey. Like, it's just so empowering to get to go to work every day and see the impact that you make. And I think, the segment of the market that we work with is mostly sort of SMBs, kind of those people that are in the scale up phase of their journey, maybe like 1 to 10 million sort of turnover. So for those people, they're often like the brands are founder led, and, they're kind of going through, you guys are quite sophisticated at this point, but for a lot of brands in that zone, they're struggling with some fundamental stuff, and they're often kind of frustrated and really looking for a breakthrough. So to be able to help people with that every day is super rewarding. Like, it's a very fulfilling role. Not that, selling showers and taps and koozies online isn't rewarding, but it's just when you actually get to see the impact that you make from what you bring into the world, it's really, I don't know, I really like it.
Yeah. And I'm sure working with, the amount of brands that you are and coaching them, I'm sure you get to learn a lot about what it takes to succeed, some of the pitfalls that brand owners and founders sometimes do see.
Yeah.
From your experience, what do you think separates, the people from really succeeding from those who kind of like dwindle and,
Yeah, like from the personal traits, you mean?
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I have exposure to a large amount of founders, right? You can almost tell from the outset the amount of personal agency that they approach their business with really dictates, I think, their performance. So what I mean by personal agency is the amount of resourcefulness and responsibility that they take for their growth, right? And I think the people who are the most successful are the ones that say, look, there might be things outside my control, but I'm still the one that needs to fix them. Probably my favorite example of this, we've got an amazing member, Samantha Brett. She runs a SPF business, Naked Sundays. They're starting to make some pretty big waves over here, actually.
Nice.
And, when she joined our program, she'd been through 8 agencies over 2 years, media buying agencies, and hadn't been able to find a breakthrough on D2C. Pretty big business offline. When she joined the program, she sort of told her whole team, like, no one talked to me for 8 weeks because this is the number one problem in our business. We can't get D2C to scale. We've tried 8 agencies. I'm going to rip the lid off it and make it work myself. And she was on every single coaching session. Like, we do like a lot of coaching every week. And every time I logged in, she would be there, camera on, questions ready, just like really digging into it. And when I hot seated her after, her first 6 months in the program, sometimes we hot seat members to kind of see what they did to get their businesses to grow. What she said was, I'd watch a video and I didn't understand it. So I'd watch it again. And some of the videos she watched 15 times, and then she'd come to a coaching call to try to get clarification. And just that level of like agency and action and volume, you could almost predict what was going to happen, right? And, she 5x'd her business in 90 days. Wow. And I think a lot of that was just that degree of like the D2C side of the business. But a lot of that was just that like personal accountability and agency.
That hunger.
Right. And so then you see other people that come into the program and they're like, this is getting in the way, and, like I didn't quite understand it, but they don't actually take that next step to actually go further. So yeah, I mean, I think the type of people that enter my world often do have a lot of that already. Like, it's almost a self-selection process before they get to us, because they want to step up and take control. And so, but I think that's got to be the number one trait. Like, if people have resourcefulness and like a bias towards action, they will find the way, no matter what the bottleneck is. Some people will get there in, 90 days like Sam. Some people might take a year, but if they have those traits, I reckon they're going to get there.
Yeah, no, I fully relate with that, because even for us post, I know we're at iOS 18, but iOS 14, that was the biggest shift in our business, where we went from like super profitable overnight. Then overnight we were losing money, right?
Yeah.
And so I think the team that we have is relentless, right? Myself, my co-founders, and the rest of the team, like, we knew we had a problem. We knew we had to fix it. And if you weren't there to help provide solutions, then this maybe wasn't the role for you. But it took us some time to figure it out. We got there, and now, things are way better than they were before. But I think it comes down to really never giving up.
Totally.
right? You can try anything and everything. And to your point, we tested so many agencies. We went through, we tested so many creatives, this and that. And it comes to the point where it's like, yeah, you can test 100 different things, but that 101st thing could be the solution, right? So never really, kind of backing down and figuring things out and being persistent. So
100%.
yeah. Before we get into some of the tactical stuff, I'm curious more so on the side of building a business, right? So you built an agency, you've built a brand, you've built this coaching. What are some of the biggest lessons for you as a founder that's just building a business? What does it really take to kind of get off the ground running and actually build something sustainable?
Yeah, I think in like any business, right? Whether it's an agency or a physical product business or a services business, the very first hurdle you need to meet is product to market fit. And I think that the more value that you create for people, or the more, the bigger the problem that your product solves, often the further that business can go. So yeah, I really think like having worked across multiple different business models, from e-commerce to services to sort of more what we're doing now, which is almost more approaching performance technology and education, far more leverage than a service business. The inherent limitation of those businesses often comes down to total addressable market size and your product to market fit, which often is the size of the problem that you solve and the novelty with which you approach that. Yeah, I think that's been a big lesson for me, just building all these different businesses and seeing different business models. I'm grateful for every business I've had along the way, but I definitely think that the e-commerce equation business that I've built over the last sort of 5 years has been meaningfully different, because it does solve a pretty big problem for a pretty big group of people, and it does it in a way that's fairly unique and gets really good results for people. And that's really helped it sort of grow as much as it has, and sort of, so big lessons in that.
No, I love that insight. So the biggest question that brands face, especially when they're trying to, I guess, go from being maybe solo founder or trying to make that next hire and try to grow the business, is, well, do I hire in-house versus hiring an agency? I know where I stand on this. And it's actually gone back and forth over the last few years, but I'm very curious on your take, being that you've been on both sides and, and on the coaching side too. So curious.
What's your take?
We've tried both, right?
Yep.
Fully like trying to build an in-house team. The thought process there is that you want people that are solely focused on your brand and nothing else. And if something happens, you want them to be quick, responsive, and that's why you build something that's in-house. You have people come to the office, whether it's a few days a week, or you have alternative being remote. I found that the A players that will truly move the needle for your business, they're obviously going to cost a lot.
Yeah.
The problem is that the A players also will require a team under them. So they're not going to be the ones that are going to come up with the strategy, then also get their hands dirty and be hands-on. Like take email, for example. For email, you need a designer, you need a copywriter, you need some tech support there as well. One person doesn't necessarily, I don't think they can do it all, right?
Yeah.
And so put that into perspective. You need almost 3 hires minimum to run email, and star players are going to be, 6 figures plus. So you're probably spending anywhere from 30K a month just on, 3 people to run this department. Whereas you can probably get a really good agency, let's just say same cost, but you have way more people on the account.
Yeah.
Granted, they're not fully focused on it, but the pros is that they get to work on different accounts. They see what's working in different accounts. They can bring those learnings to you. And again, you have multiple people, designers, copywriters, et cetera, et cetera. So that's why I've gone more towards the agency route, just because we have more heads and more hands on the brand, I guess, at the risk of being less focused.
Yeah, that makes sense.
Right.
That makes sense.
Yeah.
That makes sense. Yeah, I think that's a good take on it. I think when you're hiring for 3 things. You're hiring for strategy, like what do I do, what's working, what are other people doing that's working. You're hiring for optimization. I can read the data and I can see what's happening and I can understand what I need to do to adjust to make this strategy better or to pivot as needed. And the third thing you're hiring for is implementation. And I think you can actually bundle and unbundle those three things. So I think the challenge that people have when they're hiring, especially when they're not at your size, when they're sort of more in that mid-market scale up size, is that they try and hire not six-figure people and they expect them to know the strategy. So they'll often hire someone, and the most common thing I see is people will hire a marketing manager and they'll say, right, your role is email and paid traffic and influencer.
A whole lot, yeah.
And they'll try to get one person who's going to, do 17 roles. Yeah. You're obviously at the scale and self-awareness that you know that, you actually need to build out these different segmented roles and responsibilities. So when it comes to an agency, undoubtedly the best talent are in agencies. Like I've just spent 3 days in New York at Meta at the agency summit, meeting the best agencies in the world. And those guys are really impressive. But the problem is that unless you are a top 1% brand, you do not get access to the top 1% agencies. Like these agencies that I'm meeting work with 20, 40 brands at a time. So if you're on your growth journey, it's very unlikely that the email team that you get at Obvi is going to be the email team that a low seven-figure brand's going to get.
Right.
So the talent pool's different. And so I think that the experiences that people have with agencies is often different. And I'm not pro or anti-agency, but what I am doing is mirroring what I hear from brands, which is often the results of smaller brands going to agencies is mixed. And I think that is because you do go down the totem pole. And if people can't pay 10 or 15 grand for an email agency, they'll often try pay 2 or 3 grand for an agency and end up with offshore resources, or they end up with like the kind of second tier resource pool from an agency. And that often leads to substandard results. So I think that's pretty prolific right now. So I think there is an alternative approach, which is if you unbundle strategy, optimization, and implementation, if you could find a way to get the strategy and you could maybe take it on yourself for a period of time and understand what's working, and then hire for implementation and train them up into optimization, I think you can then scale, especially if you're in that mid-market size business. Right. I think that's probably the approach that I would advocate for. And a huge part of what we've done at Ecommerce Equation is democratize the strategy. So we have thousands of brands, say for email. We have George, our email CRM lifecycle coach. We've put all of what's working into documentation, implementation projects. So then a brand can come in, they can understand the strategies, maybe implement some of it, and then get a not a six-figure hire, maybe a 60 or 50 grand hire who can come in, get upskilled, run the implementation and optimization. So I think for brands at your size, agencies make a lot of sense because you get the best, right? And it is probably better than building a 60-person team. But for brands that are coming up, I think there's that like path where you're probably not ready for it and you probably need to go a little bit further yourself. What do you think of that approach?
Yeah, no, I love it. I think it falls in line with what I also tell founders who like, or maybe sign up for consulting calls or whatever it is. And the first question they ask is like, oh, like, how do I hire for a media buyer?
Yeah.
Right. Obviously switching gears from like email to media buying. But in my opinion, you can get the strategy from a mentor / consultant.
Right.
Right. Us.
Yep.
And you can then figure out a way to implement it because now you have that strategy. The reason you had that question of where do I find a media buyer is because you don't know what to do, right?
That's the problem they're trying to solve. I don't know what to do.
I don't know what to do.
Yeah.
And if you can solve that for them, and yes, like there's gonna be, things that like email or influencer where you'll get the strategy, but you still need somebody to do it. I think for like media buying, and you tell me if you disagree or not, but for media buying, like I'm in the ad account once a week. And so if I can teach another founder how to just do that and only need to worry about the creative side of things and CRO and other stuff and like leave the media buying to an hour's worth of work every week, then you've just saved yourself a good amount of money. Instead of hiring a media agency, you can hire a creative agency instead.
Or train someone up in your team to take it on. You don't even need to hire anyone.
Exactly.
But I think what we've just described there is the difference between abdication and delegation. Abdication is I don't know how to do it. I'm going to put responsibility onto someone else because I don't know how to do it. So I'm just going to put the accountability onto someone else and hope that they figure it out.
Yeah.
And delegation is you do it, you understand it, you systemize it, and you start to offload the actual doing to someone else, but you've got a strong oversight and understanding of it. And I think that's what the best business owners do, right? Is that they take it on for a period, they figure it out, and then they delegate the activity. So it's not on, the founders we work with don't push the buttons forever, but they do for a period of time, right? Like Samantha Brett, she's not pushing the buttons in the account anymore, but she did for a period till she found the breakthrough.
Yeah.
And it was a bit of a creative breakthrough, a structural breakthrough. Once it's set, like you say, it doesn't take huge amounts of time every single week. It's not 40 hours a week, right?
Yeah.
To run an account.
Exactly. No, that's actually a really good point that you just made. I mean, there's these two scenarios, right? For example, we just started to crack TikTok shop.
Nice.
And so we had a couple people come into the account to run it for us before we even took a stab at it. Cause I was like, I don't have the time to do this. I have my focus on something else. Like if my goal is to make an additional couple thousand a day, it's not worth my time, right? So somebody else should come in and get it. Again, I didn't know what needed to be done to get TikTok shop off the ground and running. I can't expect somebody to come in and like really allow them to do it themselves. And so we wasted a couple months because the agencies that we did bring in didn't make any movement. Now it's like, you know what? I'm going to roll up my sleeves and I'm going to do it myself and let's figure it out because it can't be this difficult, right? 30 days in, probably doing it myself, having a little bit of help from the team. Like we got to 50K in GMV. And I was like, okay, cool. It's living, it's breathing. Like now somebody take it and take it to the next level, right? Because here's the strategy we've kind of cracked. Come in, optimize, and make it better.
Yeah.
That I think makes a lot of sense.
That's the approach.
Right?
That's the
now,
approach.
The other side of things is our influencer stuff. We actually hired somebody out of college. I had the idea of how I think we should have run influencer, right? It was a bunch of seeding, whoever liked the product, turn them into influencers, turn them into affiliates, have them post regularly, right? That's the overall concept. That's what I tried to delegate, but I wasn't doing it. I was trying to delegate it to this new hire that I was trying to train up. And like, I failed in not explaining properly, not delegating properly, and like kind of leaving her out to fend for herself,
Gotcha.
right? After that, it's like, okay, I really don't know what I'm doing because everything that she tried failed. Now let me bring in the big guys and let them figure it out because that's not my forte. So I think the point of this is that you can do both.
Yeah.
I think it's up to the founder to realize when you actually need the help versus like, all right, let me figure it out and then get the help. I think there's a fine line between both.
Yeah, it's so circumstantial. Is it a main channel, secondary channel? Is it going to be pretty straightforward? Is it more implementation help because you're resource constrained, or is it actually trying to find the path forward? So
I agree.
But I don't think there's no right or wrong, and I think it's so circumstantial. But yeah, cool to hear your personal take on it as well.
Yeah, no, absolutely. In your opinion and in your experience, where is the best place to find the right agency to fit into your business, and how do you know that you're making the right decision picking whoever you're picking?
Yeah, good question. And I think it's a question everyone comes up against. I really think e-commerce equation has created this third space. So you've got the do it your own with YouTube videos trying to figure it out, or you've got the give me the keys to your accounts and I'll send you a report at the end of the month agency approach. I think e-commerce equation has really created this third space, which is we'll show you the strategy, we'll give you the insights of benchmarking what's working across thousands of brands, and allow you to either train someone up or figure it out yourself and then train them. So I'm a massive advocate of that third approach, which is hiring and internalizing, especially the core channels like Google and Meta. Like all these channels are getting like very simplified, particularly Meta, like, with Advantage Plus shopping campaigns and just the amount of AI that they're rolling out in their targeting. They're getting pretty easy to actually run. A lot of the impact's being made on the creative front. So I think with the primary channels, I personally think that media buying agencies are getting less effective, and that it is probably something that is worth owning yourself. And this third space we've created with the e-commerce equation is designed to kind of give people the backstop and the confidence to actually implement that.
Right.
I think the supplementary channels, if you're trying to select, say, an agency for email, or you're trying to select an agency for influencer marketing or a supplementary channel, I think the good questions to ask is to actually meet the team that's going to be working on your account. So one of the most common things that I see is do you have the term hospital pass?
No.
It's like a football term where like someone will pass you the ball right as you're getting tackled. It's like a stitch. It's like, yeah. So I think what we see in agencies is often you'll get the founder or the guru dude will sort of sell you in.
Yeah.
And then they'll be there at the first meeting. And then at the second meeting, they'll be like them plus some like dude who looks like a teenager. And then the third meeting, it's just the teenager dude who looks like he's just finished college or something. So I think actually understanding who's going to be working on your account, especially if you don't have the gravitas that you do and Obvi does, like just saying, hey, can I meet the team? Understand who's going to be working on the account. I think it's a very good question to ask. Having an understanding of whether it's onshore, offshore talent. And then I think that one of the hardest things with an agency is just this accountability diffusion where, everyone just ends up pointing the finger at everyone else. Like it was the creative, or it was the offer, or, it was if you're doing email, it was like the images that you sent us didn't work, or you were late on your timelines. And so I think just actually getting like a clear scope of works and sitting down and talking through some examples. And then outside of that, I think number one thing, any agency, any service provider for that fact that cares will be tracking average aggregated satisfaction metrics. So I love Net Promoter Score. We track it all the time. Our e-commerce equation NPS is 83. So I think they should have that, and I would ask for that. And if they don't, it might be a signal that they're not actually caring about their output and their results. So yeah, I think that'd be the thing. Meeting the team, understanding who you're working with, being really clear on the scope and understanding what's in, what's out, so you're not getting any surprises, and then understanding satisfaction metrics would be my 3 keys to trying to hire a service provider. Any service provider, not just an agency.
Yeah, makes sense. One of my biggest struggles up till recently was establishing KPIs for myself to understand if the agency that I hired was doing a good job or not. And so I'm curious for you, how do you determine, okay, now you've been working with this agency for 30, 60, 90 days. How are you determining, well, is this working? Is this still the right fit, or do I need to move on?
Yeah, I love the concept of giving yourself KPIs to figure out if the agency is working. Again, it really depends on what the agency is doing, right? So if you're working with a media buying agency, if you were to give them the KPI of ROAS, that can actually be suboptimal, because the activities and actions, the way we would structure an ad account to optimize for ROAS may be directly contradictory to optimizing for incremental new customers, right? You would over-index towards existing customers, and you would
targeting,
right? And so like we see this a lot where people need to be really, really clear on their objectives. So personally, when we teach founders how to run Meta in-house, we optimize for daily profit and incremental profit uplift daily, right? So there's a big difference between going in and saying, hey, agency, like I want a 6 ROAS. They'll give you a 6 ROAS, but it may not actually move your business forward. Right. You may just go from having 20% view through conversions in your account to 80. And those additional 60% we're probably going to purchase anyway. Right. And you've just robbed some impressions from like top of funnel and true new customer acquisition just to boost the ROAS. So I think being actual clear on the business outcomes that you want, not the in-platform outcomes. Even Klaviyo and Pinterest and TikTok, like all these platforms are prolific at over-attributing. So I think being really clear on creating a business outcome from the activity would be what I would be suggesting. Definitely getting outside of the in-platform actions and truly understanding what's going to drive the business outcome that you're seeking.
Yeah. I think one of the tips that I've implemented recently is for the recent agencies that we've hired, I almost don't give them a KPI that I'm looking for. I ask them, well, what are you comfortable or capable of achieving in 30, 60, 90 days?
Interesting.
Right? So for example, the email marketing team, I was like, I have a goal to hit this revenue on returning revenue. When do you think you can hit this? Right. And they're like, okay, well, looking at past data, we'll be able to hit it by this time frame. Now that worked for me. I was like, cool. You set the KPI, you set the targets. I'm good with it. Let's revisit that in this time frame. At least when we get down to it, if they were unable to hit it, it wasn't my target that I set. It was your target that you set. And that you can't come back to me and be like, oh, well, why are you upset?
That was unrealistic.
That was yours. Yeah. So that's something that I've started to implement. So like with email, returning revenue. And then do
you agree with the measurement as well? Because I think that's quite important. Like, are you saying in platform, like 7-day click or 30-day click?
It's completely business objectives, right? So I don't care what our send lane account is saying. Yeah. I care about actual returning revenue that's coming in on a monthly basis.
Gotcha.
That's what Shopify is telling me.
Yeah,
I have
right.
X amount of returning revenue. That's what you need to hit.
So I think a lot of people miss that
there.
point. I think you naturally go there. I think a lot of people don't. I think
They
a lot
go,
of people,
oh, I need to
what's
see
my
this
send
in
lane
my-
metric?
Yeah.
And what they don't understand is, there's a view through window, or there's a very generous click through window.
Yeah.
And that, you may see the KPI being hit in the send lane account, but you may not actually see that impact in the returning customer rate in Shopify.
Yeah.
So I think like you naturally go there. I think a lot of people don't. I think a lot of people
The end goal result for
Yeah.
your business, that's the target. And then even for like Amazon, for example, like we know that we're launching a new product on Amazon. It's going to take time to ramp up, but you tell me what velocity you can hit in 30, 60, 90 days.
Yeah.
If that is what I'm aligned with, cool. Go for it. Do whatever you can to get there. But at the end of the day, at 90 days, if you didn't hit it, it's not me. It was you. You told me, right? So I think that's something that I think a lot of founders don't do, is set those expectations and have the team that you're working with set those expectations for you. If you're aligned on it, great. If you're not, then work it out. But if you're aligned on it, then you have a time frame in which you need to decide, okay, well, is this going to continue working, or do I need to find somebody else?
Yeah.
And you got to move quickly on that.
Yeah.
So that's been my experience.
Yeah. It's savvy.
Terms,
That's savvy. Yeah.
when it comes to certain positions that are probably needed for in-house, are there anything specific or any role specifically that you would prefer brands to hire as an in-house position?
I don't know if I'm 100% aligned with I think agencies are right for brands at your size, right? I think a lot of brands I work with, agencies probably aren't right for. So I think it's sort of very circumstantial, you know what I mean? So I do think we're probably aligned at your end of the market because you get the best talent. But I think that the experiences that I hear from a lot of founders that I work with are that they've tried agencies, mostly media buying agencies, to be honest. It's the primary go-to-market channel with a lot of those brands at that early stage. And a lot of those media buying agencies, often, the feedback that I hear is that the results are suboptimal, right? So I think that, especially for those earlier stage brands in that 1 to 10 mil bracket, I think owning their primary go-to-market channel is a really good idea. And I think one of the reasons for that is that, we spoke about this diffusion of accountability, but I think that goes two ways. So I think what I often see with founders is that they're trying to solve their entire business growth problem with ads agencies. But the problem with that is that if they don't have an ads problem, there's no amount of agencies that are going to fix it. So they think there's going to be a magic agency they stumble across that's going to get them a 10 ROAS and that will fix all their problems. And they don't, have any true understanding of what the actual benchmark performance is like, or really where ads fits within their business. So I think that primary channel, particularly of media buying, in my opinion, to be most people should own that for a period of time to figure out where ads fits. And to be honest, to also have some personal accountability of everything that fits around it. So for example, they might have a creative problem. And that's a huge thing that we see is when people take the ad account on in-house, they start to see that real tactile response from putting creative into the account, seeing what resonated, iterating down that direction, seeing what other people are doing. And that often leads to massive breakthroughs.
Right.
All their unit economics aren't there. They're demanding so much ROAS to kind of counter suboptimal unit economics.
Right.
Or they've got cost bloat and the fixed costs are taking all their profits, so they can't they can't afford to spend more on ads. There's always issues that, especially as people are going through that scale up journey, they haven't reached sort of that, consistent level that you're at. Often they don't have an ad problem and they're trying to fix it with agencies. So I think taking it on in-house, taking accountability and actually figuring out where it fits the entire ecosystem of the business can lead to transformational growth, because you often end up identifying what was truly holding you back. And maybe it was ads, but maybe it was something else. So I think when it comes to going in-house, I definitely think for brands in that range, taking it on yourself or resourcing it through your internal resources so it's really close to your brand, particularly Meta or Google, those primary go-to-market channels, I think is a great idea.
Right. No, I love that. So switching gears to Q4.
Yeah.
We just kicked off Q4 at the time of filming. We're just kicked off. I'm curious how the coaching goes during this time. Is there a lot of preparation that you're basically kind of telling founders, you got to get started early. You got to, dial in inventory. You got to get marketing ready to go. You got to get your offers ready to go. How does this time, really differ from the rest of the year, in your opinion?
I mean, it's huge, right? Most of us are going to do 30, 40% of our entire year's revenue in the next couple of months. We start planning in July. In fact, we did a 2-day summit in August just for members. We had 600 or 700 founders come out to my hometown.
Wow.
And just did like a 2-day intensive planning. We start in July, August, so there is enough time for demand planning, and people can kind of change their POs and adjust based on their targets. But it's basically from August through to January. It's basically the primary focus that we have. A lot of it is around planning the choreography of the sale. When am I going to launch? What's the offer? How are we going to preserve profitability? And then obviously how do we run the different channels that go into making a successful Black Friday? But it's like literally my favorite time of year. But we do a huge amount of prep.
Yeah.
When did you start planning?
So definitely around the summer is when
Yeah.
we place the order for inventory. We also do a lot of free gifts during the time, so placing those orders so they come in time.
Yeah.
Over the last few years, I think we've kind of shifted our strategy a little bit after like 4 or 5 Black Fridays. I'm curious your take on how brands should be treating acquisition and retention during things like Black Friday and Cyber Monday. Because I feel like a lot of founders do make the mistake of, we have to discount big. And it's like, oh, well, what is that going to do to your margins? What is that going to do to your like CAC targets? Like, I think some helpful tips around maybe acquisition and retention would be good to kind of go through.
One of the big traps is people over-incentivize the offer. And I think that's sometimes to compensate for poor planning and strategy and execution. Just throw 50% discount and you're going to do the numbers, but at what cost? So one of the first things we do is craft an offer, and that offers obviously the main discount, but it also incorporates gift with purchases, gift with purchase thresholds. It incorporates mid-sale additional tactics. It incorporates the actual Black Friday and Black Friday weekend, sort of like last chance FOMO messaging and approach. So the offer's insanely important, but everyone should be going into Black Friday with a very clear understanding of the profitability and expected profitability of that offer. So we have a calculator which you can put your discount in, you can put your gift with purchase cost, gift with purchase uptake, your landed product cost, expected average order value, and you can calculate this, right? So you should go in with a very clear expectation of what your profit should be. So at the end of every Black Friday, we do a survey of all our members. 18% of people said they were blown away with the profit. 42% said it was really great. And another 30% said it was good. So 90% of people were happy with the profitability of their Black Friday. And that, like the very first step in achieving that outcome is actually having a plan and understanding what it should be, not just going in blind. And like the thought that people go into Black Friday and just pluck a discount out of the air and don't understand,
I was just thinking that.
It's just so wild to me. But I think a lot of people do. A lot of people just see what someone else is doing and just go, 40% sounds good.
I think people don't set the right goals for themselves because they're paying attention to what's happening elsewhere. And they're like, okay, I need to hit this arbitrary revenue number. And people are just thinking top line. Top line growth, like top line revenue. One of the biggest things that we've now realized after getting into retail and having a few Black Fridays under our belt is one, like we don't have to hit insane numbers. I want to make sure that the business is profitable. I need to make sure that we're acquiring customers that are not going to have a lower LTV during this time frame. And I want to make sure our customers come back and they're happy with some of the stuff that we're doing, right? So I treat this completely separate, and I would love your thoughts on this. But for acquisition, we don't actually change our deal at all throughout the year. So we have an offer that works really well. It's consistently bringing in customers. We have an estimated LTV for these people. We know what and how these customers are going to behave. Now, if I'm acquiring new customers, I'm going to keep the same deal and just rebrand it as a Black Friday sale because, again, I'm driving new visitors to the website. They have no idea what I was running before. They're now seeing a Black Friday sale on my landing page. Okay, this must be the Black Friday sale, right? So let me just continue this on. And instead of now trying to be like, make it better, but who are you making it better for? They haven't seen it before. So you're cutting your margin for no reason. And then also at this time, a lot of people are spending money. Your CAC is going to go up. So not only is your CAC going up, but your margins are coming down because you decided I need to have a deeper discount, right? So that's my take on the acquisition side of things, keeping everything kind of evergreen and rebranding it as Black Friday. On the retention side of things, there was a stat where I believe people have a budget of around $500 to spend on the holidays, right? So they're not going to go and shop every single brand that they've bought throughout the year. They're going to pick and choose, right? And 75% of it is going to be used towards gifts, right, for the holiday season. So now being in supplements, we're not the first on the list. We're not giftable. It's not something that you're thinking of, right? For us, we have to be very creative in getting our customers to come back, right? And so what we've realized is that, yeah, sure, the discount is great. Everybody's running a discount. You're expected to run a discount, right? The biggest way we can get people to come back is Black Friday exclusive launches.
Gotcha.
And gifts, right? So if you come and shop, Avi, during this time, you're going to get this premium gift with your order. And hey, by the way, we have a new flavor coming out for this week only. So now you're incentivizing your customer. Hey, listen, we know that you have budget for something else, but if you miss out, you miss out, right? And so it kind of puts that FOMO into everybody's head. And so that's why we think the discount is nice, the free gifts are nice, but if you can involve some level of FOMO with like new stuff,
new product development, yeah, it's huge.
I think that's like probably where people should lean into. But I'm curious your thoughts.
No, it's savvy, man. I love that strategy. I think like in the seat when we work with so many brands, I think one of the things we have to do is we have to sort of differentiate different styles of sales, and that's obviously different sizes of business, but also the different nature of products, right? If you're selling kayaks, it's very different than if you're selling like a repeatable consumable supplement. Right. So I think all these strategies, people really need to understand how to apply them to their business. And, we look at sales in 3 different tranches: high repeat style of sale. So most people that buy on the launch day have purchased from you before. And I imagine you're the same. It's probably 50, 60, 70% of people that are buying are existing customers. And the other, 50% of people, or whatever it is, they probably aren't stumbling across you on Black Friday. You've probably been in consideration for a while. Right. And it's just a conversion event. So the way that you would run that sale, I think, is quite different than if you're selling a kayak, and when someone's got a kayak, they've got a kayak, they don't need another one. It's a once and done kind of product. So when it comes to the offer, I love the idea of just repurposing the same offer for acquisition. I do think Black Friday is a brand, and I think it's different. It's so hypey. Like, it is the ultimate buying day of the year. So I think for a lot of brands, they do choose to put their best foot forward, even if it's just marginally. So you can actually sort of say, this is our best deal of the year. And you can kind of tap into that like Black Friday frenzy. And you can do that. Like, often some people do that in a way which isn't necessarily discounting further. But if you've got exclusive gifts, it might be creating a bundle, and the discount on the bundle might be deeper, but it's really just you're throwing in the free gift and stuff like that. So I think massaging it in a way, but I do, like, personally, I like putting my best foot forward on Black Friday. Like, one of my brands, Yabby, we only do one sale a year, and it's we only go on sale. We do a pretty modest discount as well, because we are not a discount brand, and we don't really acquire with offers. So I do like that sentiment though, of just trying to, preserve margin. On the retention front, I'm a huge proponent of gift with purchase. I think that the number one way that you can preserve profit during these sales is by incentivizing people to spend more. Because what we often see, if like, what's the tub of your fat burner cost? Like, what's RRP?
$49.99.
Yeah, $50, right? So if you do 30% off, maybe people just get
$15. Yeah,
it's like $35, and your AOV drops. But then your shipping as a percentage goes up. And then your packaging, your 3PL fees, everything like goes up as a percentage. So you get this double hit to profit. But it can actually swing the other way. So if you did a free gift for the purchase when people spend over 69, you could probably actually push up the AOV through the sale materially, and that pushes down your shipping cost as a percentage. And you can actually claw back some of the margin you lost with the gross profit through more efficiency from having higher AOVs. So, I think that's the reason like 90% of brands are happy with their profitability, while 83% of e-commerce equation brands had a record month in November. And it's because we hyper focus on this offer and constructing it in a way where you give a discount with one hand, take a bigger AOV with the other. And I think you can kind of find these like sweet spot offers where you can drive heavy incentives without just dropping your pants on profit.
Yeah,
you know?
no, I agree. I think there's way better value, way better ways to offer value than just discounting.
Totally.
Right? Because even if you let's just say you didn't source gifts for purchase during Black Friday, right? Which I mean, honestly, we're sourcing from China. These gifts are pretty cheap. They look great. They feel great. Quality is great. Cost us a couple bucks.
Yeah.
Right now, it's way less to offer that and then to offer 30% off, 40% off, these big chunks that are coming off your margin, right?
Yeah.
And even if you wanted to like move certain inventory that's not really moving, like for us, we have maybe a few flavors that don't move as well. Again, their cost to us is relatively cheaper than discounting the full 30, 40%. I can offer that as a free gift. Yeah. But to the consumer, it's like, oh, I'm getting a $40 product for free.
Yeah.
So
low cost, high perceived value.
Exactly.
Complementary to the main offer.
Exactly.
No thought that goes into it. Like it's, I think that's exactly what you want to try and create.
Yeah.
So
I agree.
Love gift with purchase. I also think another ninja trick, something that I'm seeing be more prolificated and I think will be more popular this year is prize with purchase. So I think a lot of people do gift with purchase with threshold, and I think that drives AOV.
Yeah.
I think particularly as you get into the sale, like the mid sale and even the FOMO section of the sale, like last chance, Cyber Monday, I think prize with purchase has been like really effective. So if you purchase within this hour, you will go in the draw to win an iPhone or I've seen that work really well. Again, like, if you give away a pair of AirPod Maxes, it's like $600 or something. But the impact to conversion rate that has can be massive. We've often seen 20% spikes to conversion rate over the hour or 2 hours that runs. So I think people being like, again, it's a non-discount. Like if $600 is a discount across a couple of hours of very big trade is
that's a great idea.
Could be less than 0.5%, you know? And so you don't need to just, discounting isn't the only lever.
Yeah.
You can have a lot of these other tools in your tool belt, gift with purchase, exclusive drops, prize with purchase, that I think can be just as effective at driving the outcome that you want.
Yeah. No, I love that. That's probably the biggest tip I'm going to take back and implement. Jay, I mean, this has been super value packed. I appreciate you coming up here and filming with us. So before we sign off, there's always one thing that we do, and we always ask for the last chew, right? What's one thing that you want viewers and listeners to kind of take back, implement into their business, like right after watching and listening to this episode? Just that one thing.
Probably the most impactful thing would be going through your Black Friday offer and actually trying to calculate what the profit is. What's your expected AOV? What's your discount? And actually going through and doing that work so you know what you're in for. Like, I think anyone watching this chat's been super fun. Like, you're obviously super on the ball with all this, but that'd probably be my number one thing. Just make sure you know what you're getting in for on Black Friday so you have a profitable result, not just a peak revenue result.
Know your numbers.
Yeah, 100%.
Chew on that. If you want more from us, follow us on Twitter, follow us on Instagram, follow us on TikTok, and check out the website chewonthis.io.